Welcome back to Dear Dog Fanatic. I'm your host, Kirsten, but you can call me Kay. I am a virtual dog trainer and dog mom of 3. And today we have a very special guest that I'm super excited for. Jodi, can you please introduce yourself, what it is that you do? Because it's such a cool niche.
My name is Jodi Casstevens-Short. I am a cozy mystery author, and I have worked my dogs into the book as the main characters, dogs as well. The 2 that are in the book are Abbey and Hayley. They're miniature schnauzers. Unfortunately, I started these books several years ago, and they have both crossed the Rainbow Bridge.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. They are forever immortalized in my books. But now we have 2 more miniature schnauzers named Riley and Finley. They are sassy. They are curious, and it's a good thing they're cute. Otherwise, they'd be in trouble every day.
We have just so much to get into today. For those who have been listening to this show for a while, the name of my company is The Canine Detective. I am also a major mystery fan. I have 3 dogs, so this is the type of author and books that I enjoy reading in my free time. So I am super excited to learn more about how you got into this, why you're so passionate, and yeah, obviously, dog lovers who wouldn't want to self-insert their dog into whatever creative work they have going on. So tell us more about how did you settle on this genre?
I have always loved reading cozy mysteries. And for those people who don't know what cozies are, I've run into some who like, what is that?
Mm.
I like to tell people they are a kinder, gentler way to kill someone.
Okay.
And I've always loved reading them. So I decided when this idea started percolating in my head of the characters, I thought, why not use them in a cozy mystery? My characters came first. They're loosely based on people in my life, my family, my friends, coworkers. And after they developed, then came the storyline. And because I am such a cozy fan, what else would I come up with besides that?
Yeah, absolutely. How many books have we have going on? Do you want to tease us with future books going on coming up? Also, obviously, we don't want to give away things because it's a mystery, but maybe just for folks who are maybe unfamiliar with the genre, what can they expect when they read the books? Think of this as
Okay.
your opportunity, like the back of the book in the good old days before we had reviews, when
Right.
we could read it, it would tell you what the book was about.
Right. Well, I have 2 that are out right now. The first one is called Murdered by the Books. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how well you can see it, but my own little pups are on the front cover. That was
Cute. For folks who are
from us.
listening, I'll just
Mhm.
describe the front cover shows the image of windows at the front of a bookstore, and there's 2 miniature schnauzers looking through the glass door. So very cute.
And then the second one is called Murdered by the Blooms. And the schnauzers again are on the front. This one takes place at a floral shop.
Amazing, yes. And immediately you can say that. You can see flowers lining the windowsill on top of tables and on the ground, and your 2 adorable miniature schnauzers right there. Is it the same? Because I'm the person where I get overly invested in the dog characters of the books. Are they the same schnauzers or different schnauzers
They are the
character-wise?
same. They are the same schnauzers, but I also introduced other dogs along the way. And my 2 dogs that I have now will also get introduced as the series progresses. I'm currently working on the 3rd book to get it finished and get to my publisher. And people have asked me, how far do you plan to take this series? And I tell them at the moment, I have outlines for 4, 5, and 6, but there are always other stories swimming around in my brain that could turn into another one. So it's kind of unknown at this part how long it will go. The stories revolve around a quaint small town and a trio of 3 sisters. One owns a bookstore, one owns a flower shop, and the other owns a bakery. Murders occur and they get sucked into the investigation. All cozy mysteries have a romantic subplot. They have the cute little pets of some sort. Mine has a cast of other quirky characters along the way, a cantankerous 90-year-old man who lives across the street from the bookstore, a quirky aunt who proclaims to be clairvoyant and has visions throughout the books, and all of Jillian is the main character, all of her cast of family and friends along the way. They're always in all the books, but I will introduce new characters as well with each.
Amazing. And is Jillian the dogs? Are they Jillian's dogs?
They are.
Yeah.
They are Jillian's dogs.
So it sounds like this is the perfect book series for those of us who grew up on Scooby-Doo, but is maybe looking for more of a cozy, the romance element, that sort of feel to it.
And a little more adult, of course.
Obviously, yes.
Yes, but if you like mysteries, I've got that. If you like plot twists, I've got that. If you like cliffhangers, I've got that. If you like romance, it's there too. So this book has something, I think, for almost everyone.
Amazing. It's also great that this is coming out now. I know that I am always looking for good reads over the summer, and I'm sure many folks are as well. Have your dogs inspired some of the canine characters or the antics that they get up to in the books?
Absolutely. I've owned schnauzers my whole life. My grandfather was a schnauzer breeder back in the 1970s, so I've been around them forever. And there are several scenes in both the first and second book, and even the third one that I'm writing, that have come directly from things that my dogs have done. And I've written them into the scenes that way. I think it makes things more authentic for the readers, and it makes it easier for me to write about it after, at least, since they are actual true happenings in my event, with my dogs.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to reading just for the pure sake of you can see the difference in media, whether or not that be books or TV shows, of dog behavior. There's a major difference between writers who have dogs and are writing dog characters as opposed to writers who don't know much about dogs and maybe not had dogs. So I'm sure many of the listeners will enjoy reading the books for that reason. Do the dogs, obviously they help inspire some of these antics in your stories. How are they in terms of writing companions? Do they stay around you while you're writing? Is it more, okay, we need to hide from the dogs a little bit to get some peace and quiet so you can tap away?
Now, when I first started these series, and Abbey and Hayley were still with me, they were definitely both my muses and my writing buddies. I have three favorite places in our house that I like to write, and wherever I was, they were right there. The two that are with us now, Riley and Finley, they're younger and still puppyish, so sometimes I do need a little break. So I leave the house and go to a nice cafe, but they too love to be wherever I am, especially out on our deck if I'm out there with my computer working. And, I wouldn't have it any other way. They're always with me.
Amazing. How do your dogs impact your work? I'm particularly curious to speak to folks who have an affinity for a particular kind of breed. Why schnauzers? Obviously, you break the book dogs into the books because you have schnauzers, but is it just because your grandfather was a breeder? What do you love about that particular breed?
I think part of it, yes, is that's what I was exposed to as a little girl. But I also think it's because they are smart, they are loyal, they can be hysterically funny at times, and they're just handsome, loyal, faithful. They can be little burglar alarms built in with their yaps that they have. Anyone who has schnauzers knows that schnauzer bark, and their personalities just always win me over.
Amazing. Now, I love that. The bookstore owner is the one
Mhm.
that has the schnauzers in the books.
That's correct.
How does that, well, I don't want to spoil it in case the antics make an appearance that would be wrong to spoil before the readers have an opportunity to read it. But how does that go together? Because shop dogs, I think, are more popular. I'm in Canada. I don't think we have shop dogs here as much, but I know that when I have traveled through the UK, it's not as uncommon to see dogs in bookstores. What was your kind of inspiration for that?
I think the inspiration was the fact that more and more we're being allowed to take where I live, we're being allowed to take our dogs with us, to outdoor cafes, and you can take them to Lowe's, you can take them to other stores. And I just thought it would be really nice when I wrote them in to have her work someplace, or in this case, own the bookstore where she could take her pets with her. And she does throughout the story. They're a fixture in the bookstore. The children who come in to pick up the books, love on the dogs every day. The dogs are trained. They know when she gives a certain command, they go back behind the counter. And I just thought it would be a really nice way to weave them into the story, too, if they were always with her at work and at home.
Yeah, love that. And I mean, that is probably one of the reasons those of us that end up working for ourselves who love dogs do end up working for ourselves, is sometimes it is harder to craft that kind of lifestyle that we're wanting with our dogs when when someone else is making those rules. Is
It was
it
always,
inspired? Sorry, go ahead.
it was always really hard to leave them when I was working outside of the house. So it's been nice now that I've retired from that career and I've moved on to becoming an author. It's nice that they are always with me.
I love that. And the small town that it's based off of obviously is fictional. Is it inspired by your town that you live in or somewhere else that you've traveled to? Or does this entirely live in your brain?
It, I would say 50% of it lives in my brain, and 50% of it is actually inspired by the very small town where my grandparents lived and my parents actually met when they were in high school. So it's 50-50, I would say.
I love that. Obviously, you have integrated a lot of your experience growing up in your life, your love of dogs, into your book, which is amazing. I think that you can feel in these creative works when something is coming from that authentic place of that lived experience, that love of place, love of the subject matter, rather than it's something that what is removed from. What, and you don't need to answer this question if you don't want to, but what are you most proud of in your books? Like, what can you look back on and say, oh, like that was a really great chapter, or I love how this turned out in this book for that reason, or this character?
Speaking to the dogs, of course, I think one of the things I love most is when I go to book events and
Mhm.
people who have already read the book will
Yeah.
come up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, I love those little dogs and everything you wrote was so authentic." And then they start telling me their own dog stories. So I'm proud of the fact that the way I've incorporated my dogs into my books have started conversations with people. And they're talking about books and they're talking about their dogs and sharing their stories with each other. It's been a lot of fun. I will say that I also worked at my veterinarian's office for 6 years, and a couple of my coworkers have made it into the books as well. And one of them commented after the first book came out, she said, "I've read lots of books with lots of dogs in it, but," she said, "I appreciated how you were so authentic about the dogs." She said, "Yes, dogs have to go outside and potty. Yes, sometimes they make a mess and chew on things they shouldn't." And she said, "You work that in beautifully." Whereas in other books, they're just kind of a little piece of the scenery. They're not
Yeah.
really part of the story. So that meant a lot to me to get that compliment from my coworker who herself knows exactly how dogs can be.
No, that is fantastic. I am someone who, in my personal life, really enjoys the likes of TTRPGs, things like Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. And that is one thing that I have found interesting because I always play characters that have dogs. Of course I
Mhm.
do, because
Of
I
course.
love dogs, right? And just as you said, one thing that I love in the games I play, in the books I read, the dogs are their own characters, to your point. They're not accessories. They're not plants. They're not furniture. They're not
Mhm.
something that you just, trot out when you need them for a bit in a scene. They are, yeah, they're their own, they're the main characters of their own lives. And so
Right.
while this might be a side character in the book or whatever is going on, they are still a character and a sentient creature in their own life. So it sounds like you do a really great job of representing that, and that must have felt really good to hear that from your coworker, who obviously has a lot of experience with dogs working in the vet industry.
It certainly did. And I hope that I can do that and that I can continue to do that in the other books. And as I introduce more dogs along the way, I will do my very best to try to do that as well. And if you're not schnauzer people, stay tuned. There are other dogs coming.
Diversifying. Soon we'll have many cozy mystery detective agencies with their own little dog companions.
Exactly.
What's one goal that you have coming up for your dogs in your personal life, if you don't mind sharing?
I am hope the two that we have now just turned 4 years old a few weeks ago, but they still act like they're 10 weeks old. So a goal I might have is to maybe see some maturity coming. We also need to work on, and if anybody has tips, I'm wide open. We need to work on being better leash walkers. When you have two of them, it's really difficult because they want to cross streams and one sees something this way and one sees something over here. And I have one that has to bark at everything she sees, even if none of the rest of us can see it. So yeah, my goal is to see some maturity and to definitely work on that leash walking. Needs a lot of help.
The dogs that you have in your book, because they are based on your older dogs, are
Mhm.
they older dogs are they like senior schnauzers, or are they of the more youthful variety?
I Because I started writing these books several years ago, they are of the more youthful variety. And you have to be realistic when you put dogs in books. They aren't unfortunately going to live forever. And so I wanted to make sure I had them at a younger age so that they would have the time to go through the books with me. Somebody did ask me at a book event, eventually if you write enough of these, something will happen. And I'm like, yes, I don't want to think about it. And I have no idea how I will write about it, but that's for a later date and a much farther book down the road.
I think that's such an interesting it's an interesting conundrum to have, because obviously these are based off of your own dogs who you loved and have mourned, and now you're writing some of the characteristics of your current dogs. And how do you, It's not that you intentionally want to kill off a character, as sometimes
Right.
authors need to do for the plot. But yeah, there is the inevitability of the lifespan of our canine companions are unfortunately not as compatible as our own.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I have several ideas going through my head. If my series gets long enough, I think, oh my gosh, people are going to start to question these dogs are what, 30 years old? How is that possible? So I've got a couple of ideas running through my head. Nothing that I'm thrilled with at this point. So I'm going to have to keep working on that. But I tend to keep them, I plan to keep them around for quite some time and quite a few books still.
Is there a major time jump between the books then?
The books are about, with the storyline, they are each one about 9 months apart.
Okay.
That gives me lots of time to work with as far as the lifespan of our furry companions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, because schnauzers are not necessarily short-lived breeds either. They
That's
well into their teenage years. Yes, this makes
that is
sense.
correct. I had one make it to almost 17.
That's amazing.
He was a good boy.
Do you want to speak to future books that you have coming out? What should people be on the look for?
Okay, I can certainly do that. The book 3 that I'm working to get finished for my publisher is the next in this cozy mystery series. I can't give away where it's going to take place. All of my readers are guessing that it's going to be at the bakery because that's the third sister's business. All I can say about that is prepare to be surprised. But the third book will continue a story that I left on a cliffhanger at the end of book 2. I do plan to get to the bakery eventually, so don't be upset with me, my readers. I also, though, I'm working on something completely different from that. I am working on a memoir of my 35 years of teaching, all the funny, humorous things that kids say and do. I'll figure out a way to work some dogs in there too. And I'm also writing a middle grade chapter book for, 6, 7, 8th graders that, of course, will also have a dog as the main character's sidekick.
Amazing. And this is so interesting to me because, of course, I have obviously met many teachers within my life, and I'm now at the age where a lot of my siblings and cousins are actually entering the school system as teachers themselves. There's actually a strong overlap or a trend I'm seeing where a lot of teachers also want to be authors. Because now you have your memoir, you have your middle grade series that you're working on, you have your cozy mysteries. This is now me just nerding out about books and not dogs so much. What made you decide to do this versus that?
I have always wanted to be an author. My mother got me started writing my stories down. I was a oral storyteller as a little girl, and my mom got me started writing them down, and she kept my journals for years. And I had always thought I wanted to be a teacher. So I thought I'll be a teacher and I'll write kids' books. When I left teaching and people knew my plan was to write books and try to become a published author, they were like, oh, children's books. But the cozy was the one that popped out first. It was the one that kept me awake at night with the ideas running through my head. It was the one that I could be in the middle of doing something else and I'd have to stop and go write down something that had just popped into my head. So I thought that those are going to have to come first and I'll have to prioritize the others.
Changing tracks a little bit here. How do you balance, or maybe the answer is that there is not balance? I see a few different methodologies from the various authors that I've followed online for years. Some that are, well, we work for 5 days straight and don't sleep and we write when the inspiration takes us, and others that say, okay, I put in my 200 words a day and sometimes I write more. Could you explain maybe what is your methodology and if the dogs factor into that potentially as well?
The dogs definitely factor into that methodology because they can only allow me to sit for about 2 hours and then they're needing my attention right now. I don't know that I necessarily follow a specific methodology. I'm not a 2,000 words a day. I did this many hours. It's more for me when inspiration strikes. If I finally work through in my head where I want that scene to go, then I'm going to sit down and work on that scene until I've got it the way I want it. But if things aren't working, I also know it's okay to walk away and I can go do something else and come back to it later. So I'm more of I'd follow the inspirational methodology, so to speak.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you work on, it doesn't sound like it, but I'll ask the question anyway. Do you work on multiple projects at the same time, or is it, it sounds like you lock in? No, okay, you do work on multiple projects.
Yes. Because if I don't feel the inspiration for one, I might feel the inspiration for another. So yes, I will work on simultaneous projects all at once. Because like I said, I am currently working on book 3 the memoir, and the middle grade. So I'm kind of like that with reading too. I will read more than one book at a time. So it must be something about how my brain works that I'm also then able to write more than one book at a time. Maybe.
This makes sense to me. I won't turn because my office is not presentable right now, but I have bookcases and I normally have 2 or 3 books going at one time because I'm a dog trainer. So I'm always reading up on things to continue my education about canine behavior or newer methodologies, things like this. Then I also am reading something fictional. I might be reading something with respect to travel. So that makes sense to me why you've got multiple. And it sounds like they're filling different buckets. Like it's not that even the same genre or the same type of story all the time. Because I imagine the wires would get crossed in your head a little bit if you were working on book 7 at the same time you were working on book 3. Unless I'm
Yes.
mistaken.
No, I will finish one book in the series before I even move on to the next one. Now I have, like I've told you, I've done the outlines, but that was at the very beginning. I just outlined all the ideas I had for the first 6. Now I haven't touched those outlines now that I've actually been writing the books because I agree. I think I would get wires crossed. And in a series, you have to be very careful that you have everything. The timeline has to be correct from book to book. You have to make sure what you've said about characters in one book, you follow through to the next one because, your readers will notice and sometimes call you out on it if they pick up on an inconsistency in the story. That hasn't happened to me yet, thank goodness, but I only have the first 2 books. But you have to be really careful about that with a series.
Awesome. And one last question here before we wrap up, because this is me just being, I would be this cheesy person. Do your dogs help you promote your books? It's like, oh, here's this photo of the schnauzer next to the book of schnauzers in the bookshop.
Well, I don't know if you saw well, I'm sure you did, the picture that I sent you of me. It was with my 2 dogs.
Yes. Yeah.
And I have a picture when I go to book events and I set up my table with my books and everything. I do have a picture of Abbey and Hayley in a frame sitting right there so that people can see these are the dogs that are in the books. And it is always a jump off point for talking to people. Everything on my table is book related. I have a runner down the middle with paw prints on it, those kinds of things. And I always point out to people when they pick up the books and they comment, oh, this cover is beautiful. I always say, and you notice those 2 little cuties on the front, those are my girls that inspired their characters in the story. So yes, definitely the girls help me sell books at any event I've gone to because like all of your listeners, dog people like to hang out and chat with other dog people.
Absolutely. And support other dog people, right? Especially, it's incredible to be able to support dog people pursuing creative works like yourself. I think people that have that knowledge and experience should be celebrated. And we just need more authors out there in the world creating new books. So it's been really lovely chatting with you today. Now's your great opportunity to plug anything that you haven't already. We'll have the links to the books that you have going out, or if you have like a waiting list for your upcoming book, we can link all those things in the show notes as well.
Well, I just would like to say to your listeners that if anything we talked about today sounds interesting to you, please do check out my books. They are available on Amazon in both paperback and ebook. Those people who know where I live, our local bookstore also has my books on the shelf. Would appreciate hearing from you after you read them. And of course, all authors will appreciate good reviews on Amazon, BookBub, and Goodread. That's how we get more notice on those sites.
Yeah, amazing. That is awesome. I know that I will definitely be checking them out. Like I said, I'm a cozy mystery fan, and you had me at cozy mystery and dog books. And then after speaking with you, I'm like, fantastic. This will be even better than I thought. For everyone tuning in today, please feel free and leave a comment down below if you're wanting to know more things. We'll make sure that everything connected to Jodi is linked in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.